And I just want you to know I had the privilege of introducing, and not only that, interviewing Deirdre Gartner. Deirdre Gartner was born and raised in the city of New York, as we all imagine. Never have I seen an ensemble like this before. I think that alone deserves an applause. Thank you. She brings a uniquely personal and distinctive perspective to the city that she adores. As a former fashion executive traveling the globe for years, nothing was more affirming and aspiring than when she would return home to Manhattan. Informed by her adventures abroad, this native daughter's ardor and curiosity for all things New York led her to zealously documented both the obvious and the hidden that the city has to offer. Gartner's extensive collection of lovingly curated photographs, they're unbelievable, by the way. If any of you just even flipped through them, they're just unbelievable. The stories and the historical details eventually led to the creation of The Girl in the Yellow Taxi, New York City, website and Instagram. Her work has been featured in Condé Nast India, the New York Board of Tourism, Street Easy, and others. She has been a guest blogger for various websites and has created custom itineraries for her enthusiastic international and domestic followers. So please welcome Deirdre.
Thank you. First of all, Joan, I'm thinking maybe we don't need the microphone. Can everybody hear me?
We need the microphone it's on tape. We need it for that. Yeah, I just told her that.
Hello? Okay. First of all, thank you for having me at the Chappaqua Library. And thank you all for coming. To come out on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock is no easy feat, so I really appreciate it. So I can just chatter away about my book. But before I start talking about the book, I'll just read a little excerpt that will give you an idea. When I started, it was in my mind, like, how do I describe what I love about New York? And as a little girl, you know, and all the magical things that this city has, you know, shown itself to me. So I just thought I would start the book in my own little love letter to New York City. So, Dearest New York, I want you to know how you are loved by the world, but most especially by me. You are a treasure trove of hidden gems, secluded alleyways, and bespoke shops. You are a city of dreams and dreamers, replete with endless possibilities. Every inch of you has been photographed and filmed throughout the years, and yet I never tire of seeing new images of you. You are a study in constant motion, always evolving. No matter where else I may travel, there is nothing more beautiful than your glistening skyline at sunset. I love that you are a city without judgment, opening your arms to the creative and the eccentric, a city where all things are possible for everyone. I love that I get to taste the finest cuisines from Kathmandu to Timbuktu, sample wines of acclaimed sommeliers and rooftop growers alike. Be entertained by the world-renowned or the enterprising kid on the corner. I can visit the finest perfumeries on the Upper East Side while sampling spices of ancient civilizations on the Lower East Side, all in the same day. You are a city of dichotomies, exhilarating and exhausting, humbling and arrogant, quietly inspiring while loudly provoking. You are in perpetual transition and a glorious example of extraordinary resilience. My hope in presenting this little book is that I have captured your unique essence and beauty. You are my beloved city with quirks aplenty, like all the rest of us, yet perfect in every way. So that's how I start the book.
That's certainly.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot we have this. Considering that you are a native New Yorker, in what ways did your personal history influence the content and style of the book?
I think, well, I'll start how the whole book came about.
Sounds good.
So I grew up, I'm one of 9, the youngest of 9 kids, grew up in a big family in Queens. And I was lucky enough to have parents that every weekend would throw us all in the back of 2 station wagons, and we'd travel around searching for, the newest dim sum or a beautiful art exhibit or to the ballet or, the most unique street performer. So from a little girl, I always had this image of excitement and the beauty of this city. And I ended up, I went to school in Manhattan from the time I was very little, and I was dancing, and then I stopped dancing, and I kind of switched careers and started working in the fashion industry. And when I was in the fashion industry, I traveled all over the world to the most beautiful cities, to Paris and London and Tokyo and Singapore and Hong Kong. But there was nothing like flying back into JFK, looking out and seeing the New York City skyline, and then getting in a cab, going through the Midtown Tunnel and smelling the smells of New York and the honking and people like screaming at each other. And I would always think to myself, I am home. Like, this is the greatest city in the world. So a couple, 6 years ago, when I have 4 kids, and when I stopped working, taking photographs of New York and just traveling around and just finding something unusual or pretty was just such a creative outlet for me. And I thought, I'm going to start, and how do I showcase these photos, just for my own liking. So I thought I'd start an Instagram account, and I was trying to think of what am I going to call the Instagram account. I don't want to use my name. I want to be completely anonymous, but I want to highlight the beauty that I see in the city. So I thought I'd call it The Girl in the Yellow Taxi. And the other thing about the name was the girl in the yellow taxi could also be this kind of imaginary figure that travels in the back of the taxi. She could be 10, she could be 25, she could be an older woman, but it was kind of this mystical character that saw the city from this unique viewpoint. So then I started a website, and I started Instagram, and started to get contacted by people saying that an image that I had posted reminded them of, there's this restaurant, Delmonico's, down by the South Street Seaport. And there's a woman that said, I grew up in that building above Delmonico's, and she had all these stories. And, I would post something on Central Park, and somebody would say, that's where my husband proposed to me, on that bench, on that photo that you took, and you send me a photo of that. So the idea that my walking around with a camera and taking photographs and capturing a moment in time and just trying to capture the essence of New York City was impacting people and reminding them of memories that they had, or places they had been, or restaurants or cafes or beautiful shops. So then I started getting requests from different magazines and from real estate companies and from the New York Board of Tourism. And so I started working with them, which was a really unique opportunity. But then the pandemic came around, and the city was completely empty. You could throw a bowling ball down Park Avenue, and there were so many. I think that's the time that I was most proud of New York and New Yorkers, because there were so many beautiful acts of kindness that were going on at that time. And just images of a couple doing a tango on a rooftop, or Norm Lewis, the Broadway entertainer who lives on the Upper West Side, would go out on his balcony every night at a certain time and serenade his neighbors. And then there were musicians that would come around in a big truck, and they would go from neighborhood to neighborhood every night and play music. The young couple that had just started a restaurant before the pandemic were now working out of their apartment, and were sending down a bucket with food. And then you put in the money and you go up and the food comes down. So not only was it all these beautiful things and neighbors just getting closer to each other, but it was also so creative. People were so creative at that time. So then New York started coming back, and there was all these reports that New York is dead, it's never going to recover. 2019 was the highest number of tourism that we've ever had. And at that time, I got a request from the New York Board of Tourism saying, we're really worried about people looking at this and thinking that they're not going to come to New York, they're going to cancel trips, they're worried about what's going on. How can you spread the word that New York is going to come back, and it's going to come back better than ever? So I started a 100-day project. So every day for 100 days, I would highlight something beautiful in New York, some business that was opening, some beautiful detail, some exhibit that was going to be coming up. And I think one of the things is there's a restaurant in Chelsea, if any of you know, called Lulu. And Lulu was bought and opened a month before COVID. It's this beautiful kind of French restaurant right across from the Joyce Theater. So they put this beautiful restaurant up. It closes because of COVID. And then when things start reopening, they reopen the restaurant. And a week after they reopened the restaurant, a homeless man set the restaurant on fire. So they were deciding whether or not should we continue, should we just call it a day and forget about this, but then they said, no, we're going to reopen. We're not going to let that defeat us. We're just going to come back. So they hired, at the time, there was a company that's still around, but all over Manhattan, we're doing these beautiful floral installations on shops and cafes and, these in the middle of Fifth Avenue, just a floral installation would pop up just to shine some brightness on the city. So anyway, the restaurant hired this floral decorator, and they covered the entire restaurant in red and orange and yellow flowers, signaling a phoenix rising from the ashes. And now that restaurant, it's jammed all the time. Their business is incredible. But those were the kind of unique stories that New York was, it was just the beginning. And they were coming back. And that tourism was expected in 2024, it's expected to exceed 2019, which was the highest number of tourists that New York had seen. So then when I started doing this 100-day project, I would get, messages from people all over the world like, I just can't wait to come back, and, is it a good time? And I can't wait for the holidays, and, thank you for showing this spot and whatever. So I started thinking that would be a really cool thing to put all this stuff that I've been working on for the last couple of years and put a book together. Mm-hmm. So that's where Dearest, New York, a love letter, my love letter to New York. That's how it all came about.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that story that you just told.
And there's so many. There's so many stories like that.
I never heard that.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of you were reading the paper every day and looking what was happening in Manhattan with the bowling ball going down.
Right.
Yeah. It's very heartwarming, those stories.
I know.
Thank you.
I know.
They're really nice to hear.
Yeah.
I love the way you talk. So what process of curating and editing the photographs and illustrations were featured in your book?
So when I put a book proposal together, and it was a one chapter, and I worked on a year putting this. I had no idea how to, it was a New Year's resolution. Somebody said, well, what's your New Year's resolution? And I said, I'm going to take tap classes, and I'm going to hopefully one day become a rockette. And then the other thing is I want to do a book on New York. So I had put it out there, and I had said it to my kids, and I didn't want to, once I say something, now I'm like, okay, now I really have to sign up for the classes, and I got to get this book. But I had no idea how to put a book together. So I got, when I was pregnant, I'm sure you all know this book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. Well, there's a book, How to Get Your Book Published version of that. It's like this thick. And that became, I remember What to Expect When You're Expecting. I would go through that, like mark pages and go back and look again. And So this was the same kind of thing. So I would circle things, and then I would call people that I had known, knew somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody that wrote a book. I would cold call them and ask them questions, which is so not my personality. But every little grain of information that I would get from people was really, really helpful. So I made a list of 80, publishers and editors and just everybody in the book department that I had researched that I was going to send my proposal to. And so I would send my proposal and write a little note attached to it. But when you send the proposal, you have no idea where it goes. Who's on the other end looking at that proposal? Or is there somebody on the other end?
Sometimes there isn't.
Sometimes there isn't. So I just said, put it out there. And the third letter that I sent out, within an hour, I got a note back from an editor at Globe Pequot who ended up being the publisher.
Can I say something? I've never heard of that. The third letter?
The third letter.
That is
within 15 minutes. So a lot of it's luck. A lot of it was luck. There was somebody at the other end.
Mary Higgins Clark had 24 letters before she got anything.
I was in a state of shock.
I'm sure you were.
So they said, well, do you have the whole, this is, we're really interested in talking to you. Do you have the whole book finished? And I was like, no, but I can get it finished quickly, I think. So then I finished working on the book for about a year. And, just like I said, I figured I would do it by neighborhood, and I wanted each photo beautiful. There's really pretty illustrations in the book by friends of mine who are artists for each neighborhood, and there's also quotes from friends of mine who are native New Yorkers, and some people that I admire who are New Yorkers. There's a really poignant quote from Sam Gross, who was a cartoonist at the New Yorker magazine for 50 years, and he just passed away 2 months ago. But all the other people that I had asked, would you write a quote for the book? They was all about New York's, the excitement and the energy. And his quote was, I love New York because it's kind to the elderly. And there's always a park bench that I could sit at and sketch, or, the subways have elevators. And I thought that was so, here's everybody else talking about all the excitement, and here's a gentleman at the other end talking about he loves New York because it's so convenient for him. But anyway, I digress.
It is true, though. That was true. It is. There's lots of places to sit, and every curb is indented, for wheelchairs. It is. It's a very friendly place.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is great. Okay. What does it take to capture the true essence of New York in a photograph?
I think I don't consider myself a writer. I don't consider myself a photographer. I consider myself really a visual storyteller. So wandering around, into each neighborhood or into these little secluded areas, I really try to capture the character of that neighborhood. So something like the West Village, which is like walking into a movie set, with all these beautiful cobblestone streets and beautiful, And I think it's going out and not for me, I'll go out and I won't expect anything, and then something will come into my view, a couple of friends sitting at a cafe having a drink, or a, elderly couple walking by with their umbrella. So it's as I go, and then you go to another neighborhood like the East Village, which still has that kind of gritty feeling. And so I think the character of the neighborhood can is what I try to capture. Or Times Square, which is such a honky-tonk, you have the naked cowboy, and you have those kooky characters that walk around, and the big neon. So a lot of it is, a lot of my photographs are really determined based off of what the neighborhoods are.
Yeah. You got that vibe really well.
Yeah.
You really did.
Yeah.
I love the photographs with the flowers around it. And when you were talking about that restaurant where they put the orange and yellow and
yes.
So many of them had the flowers surrounding the door.
And at that time when, it was such a dark time and we were just coming out of that, gave so much beauty.
It was
And
beautiful.
it was a company called, he's still around now, he travels all over the world. He started in New York. It's called Floratorium. And any of those installations that you see in shops are his work. He also did the beautiful installation over St. Patrick's Cathedral, which was really pretty. And then there's a floral designer at the same time who started called Lewis Miller. And he started before COVID, but then during COVID did a lot more of these pop-up surprise floral installations. So he and his team of floral designers would gather in the middle of the night and they'd choose a spot, whether it's a garbage can on 72nd Street or the facade of an abandoned building, and this whole team would go with these real flowers, and they were flower flashes, and they would put them in these unsuspecting spots, the entrance to a subway station, so that when it was a surprise, so that you were going to work in the morning, and all of a sudden you see this entire subway station filled with flowers. And the purpose at that point was to take these flowers and enjoy your day, take a piece of beauty with you,
And to make you smile.
and it's also that whole idea of a little secret surprise. You never know where these flower flashes are going to pop up, and they're gone because people grab these bouquets of flowers, so they're gone within an hour. So it's a really unique, I know, but it's a really unique, and he does it just for the beauty of it.
You're
And to
amazing.
surprise New Yorkers.
Your wealth of information is amazing. Could probably talk to you for hours. Okay, what is the most exciting time to be in New York?
Oh my
I thought that
gosh.
was a loaded
right
question.
Right now. I think it's funny because in the end of September, there's an imperceptible shift in the air in New York. You can kind of feel it, you can kind of sense it, but it's just gearing up. And it's the fall season, going into from October to January 1st. So you walk around and, nobody loves a celebration like New Yorkers. Starting at midnight when the ball drops in Times Square and there's millions of people, revelers, and then you go right into Valentine's Day, and then the St. Patrick's, when that green line goes down Fifth Avenue for the St. Patrick's Day parade. The month of June everybody is filled with pride. July, the Macy's 4th of July fireworks. But when Halloween comes around, and the Halloween parade and the decorations, followed by the Thanksgiving Day parade, and then the holiday season that we're in now, where everywhere you turn, there's something sparkling and beautiful and magical, and the restaurants and the outdoor installations, and it's
The department store windows.
The department store windows, yeah, everywhere you go. I mean, you can't help but, and everybody loves to come to New York at this time of the year, but you can't help to walk down the street, even with all the crowds, and just have a smile on your face.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure most of you have been to New York right now. I mean, I was just there, and it was exciting. I just came in. I had nothing particular to do, but I was all excited. Just being around there and all the excitement, it sort of just falls onto you. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what have you, so New York is known for its vibrant neighborhoods. Can you highlight a specific neighborhood from your book and share what makes it unique to you?
I think one of my favorite neighborhoods, which is actually like a little hidden gem, is the Flower District.
Really?
And it's this tiny little spot. I went to FIT, and so it's like right across the street from FIT. And it's really now, it started in the late 1800s, but now it's really like 2 blocks long, but 2 super vibrant blocks. And to get there first thing in the morning at 5:30 when all the delivery men are, the trucks are pulling in and the floral designers are circling around and putting up their wares on a big shelf about what they're going to grab for the day. And, you have to duck the potted plants and you slip on the petals and there's, the flower market cats that go in and out and jump on you as you're bending over to get a bouquet of flowers. It is, and then at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, it's gone. It completely shuts down. So it's this super, super vibrant area. And you can go, just the colors, you go into, there's this one Dutch floral line florist, and all their flowers come from Holland, and there's beautiful bouquets, just rows of different colored tulips and roses and peonies, and this, you walk in and you're like, oh, the smell. And it's such a treasure that most people wouldn't typically go to in New York.
I've heard of a flower district. No.
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard of the Mint District, all those others, but I've never heard of a flower district in New York.
And then there are specific stores. You have all the floral stores, but then you have the stores that only have silk flowers. So you walk in and you think, oh my God, this is incredible. But there's no smell. What's off? Because they're fake flowers. And then you go next door to a store that only has ribbons or only has baskets and, all things that the flower market.
Yeah. When you said ribbons, I've been to an area where they just sell ribbons, and I was going, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were so many ribbons.
Yeah, that's the trim area.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh. Where is the flower area
The flower district is on 27th Street between 6th and 7th. And then it kind of wraps around to, you can go up and down. There's a couple of other.
I'd love to go there. Okay. So what are some of your favorite gems besides the flower district?
I think one of my favorite things is riding the subway. And there's a program, the New York City Arts. And I think it's over 500 subway stations throughout the 5 boroughs that have commissioned art. So if you go on 28th Street, which is the subway station for the Flower District, there's this it's covered in this beautiful, the station inside, beautiful floral mosaic. Mm-hmm. And then if you go to the R train right near the Central Park Zoo, it's covered in mosaics of all the different kinds of animals that are in the zoo. Mm-hmm. And then on 28th Street, which used to be the old hat district, there's rows of mosaics of hats, everything from Houdini to Eleanor Roosevelt's hat to, FDR's hat. So it's really interesting. And then by the theater district, there's these big murals of Alice in Wonderland. And you walk through, even when you walk through Times Square, if you look up, you wouldn't notice it unless somebody told you, there are all these sayings on the top of the wall. 42nd Street, talking about the New Year, there's a whole group, it's called the Revelers, and it's a whole group of mosaics of families during the Times Square when the ball drops. Mm-hmm. And they're all, in different party situations. So I think and in Brooklyn, there's incredible artwork in the subways. Yes. I think that's one of the most, overlooked things in New York.
When I was growing up, I always heard that the subways were all color-coded. So for immigrants coming in and who couldn't read English, mm-hmm. they knew to get their stops by the color of the tile on the subway station.
Right.
So do they keep all that when they do the mosaics? And all?
No, a lot of that original stuff has been taken out. But some of these mosaics are old. Oh, really? And they try to, and even the new ones try to, like on Delancey Street, that used to be where all the fish markets and the peddlers were. There's all these mosaics paying homage to that neighborhood.
Oh, that's good.
So it's really, and then William Wegman, the artist that does all his stuff in
whales.
Dogs, his dogs.
He's the dog man, right?
Yeah. There's that's a whole new station that was just put in a couple of years ago.
I love
So keep your eye out for the subway art.
I'll have to know.
Yeah.
Thank you. What is your book is filled with photos and illustrations. What was your favorite image to create?
I think, I loved working on, Central Park. I think it's just, you could walk through Central Park, you could walk through the Bethesda Fountain a million times and see something totally different. The way who's in there, or the way that the light hits, or I love going to the park first thing in the morning, get there really early with all the dog walkers and the street performers as they're setting up, or the bubble man. And there's real magic in if you go early in the morning and you see, people just walking across the Bow Bridge, or I've seen so many weddings, which I think is really beautiful, in these kind of little private spots that nobody sees them, but they're getting married. And through every season, Central Park in the winter is beautiful, and then the fall with the leaves, and the summer with millions of people around. So I think capturing photos in Central Park is. And then the Conservatory Garden, which is it's up by the Museum of the City of New York on 105th Street, which is these beautiful, just really special gardens. That is not that, there's not that many people there at any given time.
You talked about weddings, and I remember going, I can't even remember where I was, but where the bridges come together, there's that area.
The Brooklyn Bridge, down by the...
what do they call that area? Brooklyn and the Manhattan Bridge come?
Dumbo. Yeah.
The weddings that are taking place there.
Because they get married in City Hall.
Oh, is that it?
And then they walk over the Brooklyn Bridge to either go, some of them are going home or they're celebrating at the River Cafe. Yeah, that's a really special thing to see a young couple starting out.
So
their
many.
life walking over. Yeah.
If you really want to see weddings, you have to go there on a beautiful day. You would not believe it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Oh. Okay. So just changing the subject a bit. What was the inspiration behind the name of your social media account, Girl in a Taxi?
I think it was just that, when I wanted it to be, I really wanted it to be anonymous. I didn't want to have photos of me. I didn't want to have my name. In fact, when I wrote the book and the public relations person said, okay, now we need a photograph of you, I was like, I'd rather have 4 more kids. I'd rather do anything than I don't want a photograph of me. I don't want anybody to know. That was hard, too. I didn't want anybody to know really who I was or what I looked like. And when I had a book signing event down in the South Street Seaport, I had this big old yellow taxi. And that was the most nerve-wracking thing because so many people came. They're like, we just wanted to see what you looked like. How old are you? Were you like a young girl? Or
Everybody loves to see you.
Right.
Well, you're being videotaped right now.
Right.
So you'll be...
Yeah.
Okay. What do you hope readers will take away from this book, Dearest, New York? A love letter to the Big Apple.
I think when you look at you hear everything that's going on in the news, and you think like, that's not the same New York as I hear about. And I definitely see New York through rose-colored glasses, and I see the best of New York. And I think there's so many wonderful people, and there's so many, like that song, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That's true. Like, that's really, it's like one of the greatest cities, and there's always people to pull you up and help you. I was just watching the marathon a couple weeks ago, and everybody was running. It was right before they run into Central Park, which is at what mile, like close to the end, so probably 23rd mile. And so there was this guy, everybody's dying as they're coming in, but there was this one guy, and you're so close at that point. You're so close to the finish line, and everybody's cheering them on. But this one guy, he was hot. I mean, he couldn't make it anymore. And he just stopped, and he just, got down on the ground. And this New Yorker jumped over the fence, and he said right in front of me, he said, do you want me to stretch you out? You can make it. Do you want me to stretch you out? So this total stranger to this other guy that was running, and there they are. The guy's, stretching him out of the thing. The runner gets up and runs and finishes the marathon. And I was like, that is such a New York moment. Always willing to help out and to, and also the fact that there's so much creativity and there's so much vibrancy. And you just have to, I think, I'm so proud, obviously, to be a New Yorker, and I think to take away from it is just that there's so many, New York is not just the surface. There are so many beautiful little things. There's beautiful little parts of neighborhoods and stories of people. I mean, one of my favorite things was as I'm walking, many miles up and down the city. My brother lives right by Washington Square Park, and on Waverly Place, which is right there, there was this beautiful pink townhouse. I mean, for years I would pass by, and there was always this woman sitting in the window, this elderly woman, and she was just looking out at the world passing by, and she and I would always wave to each other. And it was almost like we knew each other. She would wave, and we'd make hand gestures. And one day, she was gone, and there was a for sale sign that went up. And it turns out, so the home was bought by another family who worked with the Landmarks Commission of New York, and they totally redid it. It's beautiful. It's like just such a beautiful home. But it turns out the woman that lived in that house that she and I would wave to each other, her name was Celeste Martin, and her father, she was one of the early Rockettes, New York City Rockettes. And the apartment apparently was filled with her costumes. And her father was a real estate entrepreneur and owned tons of property in the village. And when he passed away, she just let everybody stay in where they were that were in her father's buildings rent-free. So this was for years. And she was a well-known personality in the neighborhood. She was always, she'd march in the Gay Pride Parade, and everybody knew this woman. And that's a true, this is a true New York story of these characters that are all around us.
They're not characters, they're New Yorkers.
They're New York, exactly. Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
We all go, I just love hearing this kind of information. You're a great storyteller, too.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you want questions?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Jenny?
We'll have to repeat it after.
The book is wonderful. I've gotten it early. Enjoyed hearing your stories. And not to take any light away from the book, but how's the tap dancing going?
I've been busy. I'm not giving it up.
She's asking about the tap dancing.
First of all, it's a great exercise, and it's great for my mom, trying to get those combinations down again so quickly. And it's funny because the class is all these young kids, like this one guy that works at a restaurant. He always comes in his waiter uniform late, so he takes the whole tap class in his waiter uniform. But I'm determined to be a professional tap dancer. Where, I don't know, but yeah, in January, I have to get back to that.
I think the auditions for the Rockettes have passed.
No, because I'll just say ageism.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Now that's a very New York thing to do. Any other questions?
So, following your Instagram account for a long time now, I studied each and every photograph. I've teased you about this before, but your reflection is never in the picture. So if you're taking a picture of a beautiful...
I'm a ghost.
How do you do that? Like, there must be a method to disappear from the picture if there's a reflective surface or a car in the way, or like, how do you manage it?
To repeat the question.
Yeah, how do I take the photos that I'm not, if there's like a reflection that I'm not in the photograph? I don't know. I take the photos at such different times of the day, and obviously like cloudy days, rainy, like when the snow or the rain or I do a little happy dance because I know that those will produce really beautiful photographs with, a reflection off of the glass, drips off of a glass or a puddle. But I make sure I'm not in any reflection. And I know you've been searching for my, right. It's like, where's Waldo?
It's a game.
Yeah.
Any other? Yeah.
I know you didn't create this Instagram account thinking that one day you'd then write a book. So now that you've written the book and you've gone through this process, what's been like the most surprising
I think just hearing from, again, just being reaffirming from people all over the world, that I got this message from this woman in this tiny little village in India who said that, I don't even know how she got the book because it wasn't in a major city, I guess Amazon. But she just said that she has such a dream to come to New York one day, and she was so excited to get this visual of New York, and she hopes to come. And I think just meeting, I've done a bunch of book events, and just meeting really nice, just really interesting people has been great. But I think the fact that the book is out there, it's in Japan, it's in Norway, it's, my little book is around the world. And it just shows you that everybody has some kind of connection to, their, either they want to be, or they have been, or they went to school here, or it's a memory, or they live on one of the most beautiful streets in the West Village. So yeah, I think that's been the coolest thing for me.
Sort of like 6 degrees of separation.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. Because everybody has a connection to somebody. I come from Brooklyn, and everybody says, "Oh, you're 6 degrees of separation from Brooklyn."
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, all the immigrants came in, and
right.
Everybody
Yeah.
has some connection to New York.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah. Here we still go.
Now that you've done this beautiful book, does it inspire you to do another one? And if so, do you know what your focus would be?
I would definitely want to do a book on Brooklyn because I think there's so many cool Brooklyn neighborhoods, Greenpoint and Clinton Hill and Park Slope and Cobble Hill. And then I have some other projects that I'm working on. But as far as a book, maybe every borough, like I would start in Brooklyn and then go to the different boroughs. But yeah, I think I have some other projects. I don't know about a book. I mean, that took a long time, so it might cut into my tap career.
How long?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to put this together?
Well, it was originally 500 pages. Once I gave them the first go through was 500, and then they came back and said you have to cut it half. What do you want to cut out? I'm like, that's like asking me, who's my favorite child? Like, I can't. That's really hard to do. So I think, the editing process took a long time, but the book, I'd say it took like a year.
Well, you knew what areas you wanted to cover.
Yes,
It
yeah.
wasn't like you were just starting out fresh.
Right,
No.
and I knew exactly visually how
Right.
I wanted each chapter to start with an illustration of a building that, that I loved, and I knew that I wanted to have some guides and some quotes. I mean, in my mind, I knew exactly
Yeah.
what I wanted it to look like.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, and there's also, when we're talking about I'm just thinking about other unique things. There's so many free things. When you think about New York, it's so expensive to go to the theater or to go out to dinner, but there's so many free things that you can do. And just wandering around the cities is like walking in a museum. You don't have to go to the Met or to the Modern. You can just walk and looking at people but the museums do have all these free things. Or the greatest ride in town is the Staten Island Ferry, which is free. Or take the tram on Roosevelt Island, which is the greatest views of New York for the same price as a subway swipe. So yeah, it's not even, you don't even have to spend a ton of money. I mean, look at the halal guy that's on 50th Street. You go there at midnight, and he still has a line down the road.
Really?
Because it's it's like 4 meals in one for $5. Yeah, 4 days worth of food from the halal guy.
And there's a lot to do.
Yes.
I mean, it is the greatest city in the world. And
Yeah.
anytime you travel, that's what people say. If you're from New York, it's always the greatest city in the world. So
Yeah.
I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh.
I really appreciate it again. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming.